Earlier on in my life, I went through a horrible divorce of 12 years, and my divorce lasted longer than my marriage.
Well, good morning and welcome to What the 50 podcast. I'm Cindy Bell and I'm here today with a special guest, Glenda Kroll.
I'm thrilled to be here with you and your audience, and hopefully I can shed some little bit of light. And as I say it, since I referred myself as like Glinda, the Good Witch of the North and the Wizard of Oz, I want to sprinkle some fairy dust onto you people out there. So maybe you can have some happiness or some joy in your life that maybe you're finding a struggle there. So
I
take it
love
away,
that.
sweetheart.
That is so cute. The Good Witch. Yes.
And the Good Witch.
Glenda, you are also a woman of a certain age, and that's, of course, my focus in this podcast, that just speaking to other women of our age-ish and talking about your triumphs, but also the conflicts and the trials that you've been through in your life and how you've overcome and where you are now and why you do what you do now. I know you're a global empowerment coach, correct? But could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do now, and why you do it and why it matters?
It matters so much because so many people, when they face controversies in their life, they sort of fall down and then they start looking at themselves in the negative tone. So they right away, I can't do it. I'm too old. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And they start showing all these doubt that starts, that negative talk that goes into our heads.
Yes.
And it just slides us down. So let me tell you, I am proud to say that I'm 63 years young.
Yes.
And yes,
and you look gorgeous.
Thank you. And I started my life over again. So ladies or gentlemen out there who are thinking in your 50s and 60s that I can't do it, hello, you can. So I'll give you a little story. Well, it's kind of it can go into huge depth, but we'll just start with earlier on in my life, I went through a horrible divorce of 12 years, and my divorce lasted longer than my marriage. And I was pulled in and out of courts. All the money was taken out of the bank account. I had two babies, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I was a stay-at-home mom at that point. And I didn't know how to buy food because my ex was trying to destroy me. And this was literal, physically, emotionally, and financially. And he constantly put that in writing, and that went into court. And I ended up with $200,000 in debt from just legal fees alone. And I had to figure it all out.
Don't they call that litigious abuse? Where they use the court system to keep you tied up forever, financially, emotionally, in every way possible.
So what I learned from it, and here's what one of the lessons key into it is that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So after seeing that, going through it time and time again, everything was dragging me back into court. And I was just sort of feeling like I'm falling apart, but yet I have to put a smile on my face because I have two babies that I got to be strong with. And I finally ended up taking over my court case myself because I kept on getting angry and frustrated because the courts were not hearing me that this was happening. Right. And I did that. And that's when that's when part of my life changed, and things changed that he couldn't pull me into court anymore because I ended up getting the head of the family law courts. She was residing on me that day, and I asked her to reside on me from now on. And that was how life sort of started to get better or easier for me.
So you became proactive for your own cause. Did you fire your lawyer at that time?
Well, he saw, my ex had a lot, they were millionaires, and court was an entertainment for him. Yeah. So we all knew what was going on, but I couldn't get out of it. And I couldn't do it for myself health-wise because it was killing me, because all I kept seeing was dollar signs, how much every day was going to cost me to go into court. And I just wanted to worry about my kids, never mind all of this. And there were a lot of other abuse that my spouse was doing, and putting the kids into really mental jeopardy. Yeah. Anyways, so what I'm trying to say is this, to be on the short side of it, is what you need to do is go back and say, what can I learn from this? And I learned a lot of things. So forward past many years, let's say about another 5 years or so, I enter into another relationship. And here I thought was my knight in shining armor. He's coming
Right.
to save me. And, life was just wonderful. And yes, it was at the beginning. We got to look at things that even in relationships, that when we enter into them, they are good times. And you need to learn from those good times as well. What had happened is I got busy through my life in my second relationship because my mother was coming down with dementia. She was a sole giver to my brothers, and I couldn't, there were things that were going on in my body and my mind that something wasn't feeling right, but I didn't have time to approach it at that time. So life carried on, and I dealt with what I had to deal with in that part of my life. But it was a few years later when things settled down. And remember, all through my life, I still have two children that for most of the time I was a single parent.
Right.
So it was this time in another relationship where I felt something was weird, and I was running his business at that time, and we were doing importing and exporting, and it was quite a large business, but something was really off and I could sense it. And here's what we don't do is we don't listen to ourselves because we keep thinking that it's all in our head.
Right.
We don't know. But this time I kept on thinking that something felt weird, but I kept pushing it off just like everybody else did.
Right.
And all the time. But this time something was nagging at me. It was one email that came in from somebody, a woman who it was in our emails from our business. And I started asking questions. Who was she? She was not somebody in our business. Why are you spending time with somebody that isn't going to be bringing business to us or creating some time of business or whatever? And when my ex stood in front of me and told me all these things, for the first time, I looked through those eyes and I knew that something was wrong. So that night I went searching and I found all of his passwords. It was in the middle of the night. It was like 2:00 in the morning. Everybody's sleeping away in the house. And I come downstairs because I can't get off that feeling that something's wrong. I find his passwords, and then what happens all of a sudden? Boom. I open up his emails and I find a whole thing of emails from all these different women. And I look back at dates. It's through my 14 years of the relationship. He was having affairs all through the relationship.
Wow.
Some for a day or two, one for 2 years, all sorts of time periods. And when he traveled, there were women that were there. So needless to say, that hit me like I was hit.
Yeah.
And I was wounded because I thought this was the relationship for the rest of my life. But what I did is I fell backwards and I went back in my head to what happened the first time in my marriage. I didn't think he would hurt me. I thought he would be there supportive, to be there for the kids.
Yeah.
None of that happened. People make a lot of promises, but who are they really?
Sure.
What happens in divorce is people begin to change because we're talking about money. So the thing that I say to everybody is what I did. I prepared. Now, let me tell you, you need to learn this. There's ways of preparing before a divorce, before a separation. And these are things that I teach, but it's also important that these are things that whether you're going through a divorce or not, to become empowered even within yourself.
That's right. That's right. Because you never know what could happen.
Anything. What if your spouse died tomorrow?
Right.
Like, what if you had the greatest relationship? And I've seen this, I had a woman not too long ago that I coached. Her husband died. She never even wrote a check in her life or paid for things online. I had to walk her through setting everything up because she didn't know what to do for herself.
Yep.
So when we talk about empowering yourself is what I believe, why I call myself the empowerment coach. It's because life hits you with all different realities. And one of the things is prepare. So instead of jumping off and hitting him and saying to him, you did this, and he would, of course, would have said, no, not me. And I know all of that. And instead, I decided that night that I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to suck it down. I am going to hold myself strong and tall because I am worthy of more than that.
And you basically had to pretend for the next 9 months, right?
9 months, so what I do is my end goal at that point was selling my house.
Okay.
Because my house, I knew that, first of all, that was always part of my retirement fund, was going to be our house. So end goal, that's how I teach everything. What is your end goal? My end goal was selling my house. Sit back and do what I needed to do. The first day was changing my beneficiaries, my will, all of my bank accounts, setting up new bank accounts, setting up a numbered company. Don't know why, but things were coming to me. And instead of saying now or whatever, I just kept on going through it. I started watching where he was going. He never knew.
Yeah, he had no idea. He had no idea.
It took me 9 months. In the midst of all this, I had to also, actually had to convince him to sell the house, because he was very much of like to keep up to the Joneses, and it was all about what it was, but
Right.
business wasn't good. So I convinced him to sell the house. I did all my own packing. I marked all my boxes. So I knew certain boxes that I knew what his time schedule was. I knew at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he went to the gym. That was my time to move boxes out of the house. I found a place to live for me and my children. My children were now older, but my son was now in his first year of law school. I needed to get things in place.
And they knew what you were doing. Your kids knew what you were doing.
My kids only found out about a quarter of the way in. The beginning part was lining myself up. I only had two friends, two of my closest friends that knew what I was doing, and they didn't really know how to do what I was doing, but at least it allowed me to cry to somebody, to scream if I needed to. One of my closest friends was my neighbor down the street. I could go out, walk my dog, cry if I needed to, which I did. And I had my own mantra: for every tear I shed, laughter shall follow. And I said this to myself time after time. And then I'd go back to her house and I would put myself back together again, and I would come home and I would shine again.
How did you do it with all the emotions that you had to be feeling? Like, and honestly, let's just put it out there. When he wanted to be romantic with you, how did you deal with that? Because I don't know if I could have faked it.
Well, let's put it this way. I had a lot of money at stake that I needed to come away with. At 50 years old, I was 52 by that point. I wasn't going to start life again like I did the last point, broke. And I decided that I was going to be an actress in my own movie. And I was going to suck it all in. He had been lying for 14 years. I figured I could lie for 9 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many women, I've known a lot of women who've been through this, and the emotions, and I get the best of them, and they cannot make rational decisions. They can't be strategic because they are so overcome with emotions. And what happens is they confront the husband, he denies, they get sucked back into the cycle. And you didn't want that to happen to you again.
No, because I saw it was a whole stream of things that he was doing, and it was years after years. If it was one relationship, we could have talked and gone through counseling, or something. But many relationships, I have more self-worth of myself, and this is what we need to figure. Everybody needs to know, how much do you love yourself? I knew that what I did for him, for his family, was way out there. I go to everything. I give my heart and soul to people.
Yeah.
And
you knew you deserved.
I deserve more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so what did I do? Well, if I had to have a couple of shots of vodka, so I had to have a shot of vodka. It's not who I am, but if it gave me a little bit of that roar, then I took it.
You do what you have to do.
Right. And I'm not going to sit there, it was 9 months of, what, I kept pushing it down. And that's why I'm saying is to have that support is so important in your life at any point. So we need to all know of what we need to deal with for others, but we need to know what we need to do. So we can pull ourselves out to the point where we need to go.
Yeah. That's so empowering. I mean, you must have felt so empowered through this experience, even with all the trauma and the hurt, but that must have sort of catapulted you into this next phase of life where you knew you could do anything.
Well, yes and no. So it was very funny. So my last night, when it was 9 months later, we met in a bar to celebrate. The house had closed and we need to have celebration, I kept saying, to
Wow.
him. And I made sure it was a public place. Everything was very carefully thought through from beginning to end, and everything in my life worked out. And I was having what I didn't know what to do, but every step I took, another thing came to me of what to do for the
Okay.
next one. So I'm telling you, we don't need to know how, we just need to keep moving. And I believe it. And it's happened in so many different areas of my life. Anyways, that day was a congratulations. We met. I told him that I found out everything, and I had actually moved the money from the house, from our joint account. I moved it into my own account and then into my lawyer's account. So, we can negotiate better when the money is in my bank account as opposed to his.
Oh, for sure.
But afterwards, what I didn't really take for granted is how much I had shoved down, and how much the next day, as I wake up in my new home, my kids are around, my place is filled with boxes, and all of a sudden, I didn't know this part of it. So I have a very dear friend that we talk about having pity parties for ourselves.
Yeah.
Go hard. You need to feel those emotions, people. When you're feeling down, feel it. But
you couldn't at the time, Glenda, you had to suppress it.
That's right. And that's why I felt it afterwards. I wouldn't allow myself. But there were things that were happening to me. I wasn't eating a lot. I was losing weight.
Yeah.
So I used that for my stories to empower what went on during that time. That was part of my whole thing of, my story is kind of very weird. And, I told him I was sick, so I needed to go to the hospital, and I needed him dropping me off there. And I walked in one door and walked out another door.
Wow.
Well, my daughter was picking me up to drive me to go pick up our funds for the thing. It's a very intense thing, but that's not the point. And people want to really know the whole story, I'd be more than thrilled to let people read it. But the whole empowerment is the next day I didn't realize how far I had come and how far I had to fall. So I spent 2 days. I gave myself a pity party for 2 days. The first day I didn't get out of bed. I cried and I laid there and I couldn't get out of bed. The next day it was all about, okay, now the next day I'm going to get up. I'm going to put myself together. And then I put myself together. I set up my home a little bit. The third day it was enough. So what I'm saying is, how long do you stay down? That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
You feel it. You accept it, but then it's time to take action and move forward. And that's what I did. The third day, I started thinking of what can I do? Because now I had no business. I had no car. I had a roof over my head, which I was grateful for, but I had nothing else. I needed a business. I needed to think. And I started thinking of what would I do that will make me happy? Because that's all I want to be in my life.
Yeah.
Be happy.
I get that. Yes.
So I started different types of things, and that's another whole things of what we go through. But because I do that, and because I've given my whole life, I just hear so many people that doubt themselves, that stayed in relationships, and I've seen it where they're being mentally or physically abused, or their spouse dies, and then they think that that's the end of their life. And they think at 50 or 60s, they can't do it. And I'm telling you, I'm 63 now. I am thrilled. I've dated more in the last year than I've dated in my entire life. I've had fun with it. It's just incredible what you can do when you have a positive, strong mindset.
Absolutely. Because there are women our age and men who think it's over. My life, I've lived a good life, and now I'm in my 50s or 60s, and now I'm just going to, chill. There's nothing better for me out there. That this is it, right? Well, if you really want it, and really go for it with a positive attitude, like you said, you can have anything you want.
Anything.
You don't have to stay stuck.
No.
So
No.
this sounds like, I mean, have you written a book about this?
Well, I sort of started a book, and I've been in a chapter in another book, spiritual awareness, but I know I need to sit down and write my book. And I actually, everybody has told me, and who have read my story, that it actually could be a movie.
I was just going to say that. It
Yeah,
could be a movie.
Yeah, it's crazy of what you can do, and it's crazy of all the things that I did and I watched, and how I powered myself more. But it's what I want to teach people. I want to teach people to empower yourself, and it doesn't matter. My situation at this point was going through somebody who had, who had made me feel not worthy enough, and I wasn't going to accept that. And that's part of what life
Right.
is, to have faith in you and confidence in yourself.
It is. And what do you say to the woman, because you are a coach? And so what do you say to the woman or the man who just can't find that?
I say, what do you really want?
Okay,
What
so you
is
start with, what do you want? Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah.
If you had a dream and one thing that you wanted to create in your life, what would that be? And then we start working from there.
Because some people, Glenda, can't even dream.
I know, but that's part of it. We start at the basics if we need to.
So now, as a global empowerment coach, that's how you refer to yourself, correct?
Yes, well, global empowerment, but global empowerment life coach, because it's all the things that we experience in our life, and we can move ourselves forward. We just can't sit there and feel sorry for ourselves and go backwards and live with that negative thought that keeps on realming through our brains.
Right. I've noticed that some people are addicted to negative thoughts, and they're addicted to the cycle and the pattern of staying stuck with negativity because in some way it feeds them. There's a payoff.
Yeah.
What do you think about
Yeah.
that?
I don't think about that very well. See, I am the one who thinks of positive. People go, how do you manage with thinking always, you're always so positive?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, let me tell you something. I just had an accident 9 weeks ago where I actually had broken bones in my lower back and in my pelvis.
Yeah.
And I'm 63, and I'm an avid hiker and speed walker, and I can't even now walk a second, like a moment. It's like I was down and out. Well, we're now into 10 weeks, and on the weekend I just went hiking. I'm back to my walking. I moved my body. I'm healing. And how did I do it? It's all in my mind.
Yeah.
So
most of anything in life and anything we do is mindset first.
totally. And people don't realize it.
No.
Because if you don't have the mindset, it will affect your business, it will affect your relationships, and it will affect you and your children. We don't realize that, all through my life, my children have watched me, and little things have come out throughout. So I knew that they were watching me and listening to me. And when the last big hiccup that I went through with my last relationship, and my kids saw, like, wow, she got up and she kept on going. I went into real estate. I started investing. I started learning, and my kids are going, Ma, do you ever stop? Like, how did you, you went from nothing, and all of a sudden now you're buying houses and redoing them. And it's like, well, you know what? I don't know. I saw opportunities.
Yeah. You set the frame for your children of what is possible. Yeah. And that's a lesson that they absorbed and that they will take with them throughout their lives.
And the little things that change them. Like, I remember my son going through law school, graduating one of the top of his class. And at the end of it, after he was called to the bar, he couldn't find a job. And, he's very much an introvert. And I just spoke to somebody today about being an introvert. And he was going downhill because he wasn't a networker. So I sat him down, and, he was going on to a very bad area in life. And I sat him down and I said to him, I need you to make a list of everything that you want in your new job. And he hemmed and hawed, and I said, don't tell me all this bullshit. I need you to make a list of everything you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then he went out, and then I sent him back to where he had articled for his law degree. And I said, now you need to start networking with people there. Well, needless to say, within a few months, he found his job, and exactly every single thing he was looking for, he found. That was the start. So I even coach my kids.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're coaching your kids just like you do your clients.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you're amazing. How can people find you, Glenda? If somebody wants to reach out, obviously you can do a lot of this online. You do probably all of it online, right?
Yeah, so I do coaching online, I do one-on-one, I do groups. But and I make it possible for people. So, it's not about the dollars. Yes, I believe that you have to pay to listen, because when I give things for free, I've just found out that people don't appreciate and don't show up.
For sure.
So
yeah.
When you pay, you listen. But I'm all about helping others. So if they want to reach me, my email is info@glendakroll@gmail.com. And also I am on Instagram now. I am, since I've been hacked, I am the Wise Woman's Word.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, well, I believe I am not getting older. I'm just getting wiser as I'm going through.
Yeah.
And on Facebook, I am Glenda Kroll.
Well, I hope that you write your book, and I hope it's a movie. Who's going to star you, Glenda? Who do you want to play you?
Oh dear. I haven't even thought about that one yet.
Yeah, think about that.
Something I better start thinking about.
Yeah, because that would
be a strong, powerful woman.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I said, for every tear I shed, laughter shall follow, and it now does. So life is really great to me.
I love that quote.
Yeah.
For every tear I shed, laughter
shall follow.
I love it.
Said that every single night as I walked, and I cried, and it gave me more and more power, because I knew that my life is about laughter, not about tears.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. This has been a great interview, and I hope people check it out, listen, and reach out to you, because you're amazing. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for listening. And please, if you enjoyed the program today, please feel free to share. I appreciate you. Get out there and start living your best damn life. Until next time, take care.